Welcome back to Disturbed Reality. The Azov Battalion, a Ukrainian paramilitary unit, has been a focal point of both national pride and international controversy since its inception in 2014, emerging in the context of Ukraine's tumultuous political and military struggles, particularly following the annexation of Crimea by Russia and the outbreak of conflict in eastern Ukraine. The Azov Battalion's story is one of complex origins and contentious debates. This video explores the origins of the Azov Battalion, its role in conflict, and the controversies surrounding its ideology, symbolism, and actions. The roots of the Azov Battalion can be traced back to the political upheaval in Ukraine during the Euromaidan protests of 2013 to 2014. These protests began as demonstrations against the Ukrainian government's decision to reject an association agreement with the European Union in favour of closer ties with Russia. As the protests grew, they evolved into a broader movement demanding political reform and greater alignment with Western Europe. The eventual ousting of President Viktor Yanukovych in February of 2014 and the subsequent annexation of Crimea by Russia created a vacuum of power and a surge in nationalistic sentiment in Ukraine. The outbreak of conflict in the Donbass region between Ukrainian forces and Russian-backed separatists in April of 2014 further heightened the need for organised defence. Amid the chaos, volunteer battalions began to form to supplement the Ukrainian military, which was underfunded and poorly equipped. It was within this environment that the Azov Battalion emerged. The Azov Battalion was officially formed in May of 2014 in the city of Mariupol, initially as a volunteer militia. It was founded by Andrei Beletsky, a figure with ties to far-right nationalist groups in Ukraine, including the Social National Assembly and the Patriot of Ukraine. The battalion's early members included a mix of Ukrainian nationalists, veterans, and other volunteers, motivated by a desire to defend Ukraine's sovereignty. The battalion's first significant military engagement was the Battle of Mariupol in June of 2014, during which they played a key role in recapturing the city from separatist forces. This victory elevated their status and drew national and international attention. By September of 2014, the Azov Battalion was incorporated into Ukraine's National Guard, formalizing its position within the country's military structure. From its inception, the Azov Battalion has been embroiled in controversy, primarily due to its ideological associations and the symbolism adopted by some of its members. Critics point to the battalion's use of symbols that bear resemblance to Nazi imagery, such as the Wolf's Angel, which features prominently on their emblem. While the battalion has denied any connection to Nazi ideology, arguing that the symbols have been reappropriated with different meanings, this has not quelled criticism. The background of its founder, Andrei Beletsky, has also fueled accusations of extremism. Prior to leading the Azov Battalion, Beletsky was known for espousing ultra-nationalist and at times white supremacist views. Although Beletsky later distanced himself from such rhetoric, his earlier statements continue to cast a shadow over the battalion's reputation. Pre the Russian invasion of Ukraine in February of 2022, the Azov Battalion were accused of committing crimes against pro-Russian citizens in the Donbass region, including numerous allegations of torture, rape, as well as murder. A report by the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe detailed the experience of 200 ex-prisoners who encountered horrific treatment at the hands of the Azov Battalion. Between August of 2014 to January of 2015, many of these ex-prisoners were interviewed, and they claimed the following. They alleged that prisoners were executed, beaten cruelly and for multiple days in a row with different objects: iron bars, baseball bats, sticks, rifle butts, bayonet knives, and rubber batons. Techniques widely used by the Ukrainian armed forces and security forces included waterboarding, strangling with a banderist garrote, and other types of strangling. In some cases, for the purposes of intimidation, some were sent to minefields and run over with military vehicles, which led to their deaths. Other alleged torture methods used by the Azov Battalion and other security forces included bone crushing, stabbing and cutting with a knife, branding with red-hot objects, shooting different body parts with small arms. The prisoners taken captive by the Azov armed forces and security forces were kept for days at freezing temperatures with no access to food or medical assistance, and were often forced to take psychotropic substances that cause agony. An absolute majority of prisoners were allegedly put through mock firing squads and suffered death and rape threats to their families. Many of those tortured were not even members of pro-Russian separatist groups, such as the self-defense forces of the Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republics. The Azov Battalion's controversies have not been confined to Ukraine. Internationally, the battalion has been subject of scrutiny and condemnation. Russia in particular has used the Azov Battalion as a focal point for propaganda, portraying the group as evidence of Ukraine's alleged descent into fascism. This narrative has been leveraged to justify Russia's military actions in Ukraine. In the West, opinions on the Azov Battalion are divided. While some view the battalion as a legitimate and effective force against Russian aggression, others highlight its problematic associations. To put these concerns into perspective, in 2019, the US Congress debated resolutions to designate the Azov Battalion as a terrorist organization, citing concerns over extremism. Although these efforts did not lead to formal designation, they underscored the battalion's polarizing image. Despite the controversies, the Azov Battalion has played a significant role in Ukraine's defense efforts in the Donbass region. Its members have participated in numerous battles against separatist forces, often demonstrating discipline and effectiveness. The battalion's ability to recruit and train volunteers quickly made it a valuable asset to Ukraine's military. Over time, the Azov Battalion has evolved into a broader movement. The Azov Regiment, as it is now officially known, forms part of the National Guard of Ukraine, and the Azov movement includes political and social initiatives aimed at promoting patriotism and civic engagement. However, this evolution has done little to alleviate concerns about the group's ideological roots. One of the most contentious aspects of the Azov Battalion is its symbolism. Critics argue that the use of symbols associated with the far right undermines Ukraine's image and fuels narratives used by Russia to discredit the country. Defenders of the battalion counter that the symbols have been stripped of their original meanings and are now used to signify Ukrainian resistance and resilience. Public perception of the Azov Battalion within Ukraine is complex. For some Ukrainians, the battalion represents a vital line of defense against Russian aggression and a symbol of national pride. For others, its controversial history and association with extremism are a source of discomfort. The Azov Battalion's story cannot be understood in isolation from the broader context of Ukraine's struggles for sovereignty and identity. Since gaining independence in 1991, Ukraine has grappled with questions of national identity, political alignment, and territorial integrity. The emergence of groups like the Azov Battalion reflects the urgency and desperation of Ukraine's position. Faced with an existential threat, the country has relied on a diverse array of actors, including volunteer battalions, to bolster its defences. While these groups have provided much needed support, they have also introduced complications, particularly when their ideologies and actions clash with Ukraine's broader democratic aspirations. Recognizing the controversies surrounding the Azov Battalion, the Ukrainian government and military have taken steps to address some of the concerns. The formal incorporation of the battalion into the National Guard was intended, in part, to bring it under state control and ensure adherence to military regulations. Additionally, efforts have been made to distance the battalion from its more extreme elements and to promote a narrative of national unity. However, these efforts have been met with mixed results. Critics argue that the government has not done enough to address the ideological issues within the battalion, and that the continued use of controversial symbols undermines Ukraine's credibility on the international stage. The Azov Battalion is a microcosm of the broader challenges facing Ukraine as it seeks to defend its sovereignty and assert its identity in the face of external and internal pressures. Its origins, rooted in a desperate need for organised defence during a time of crises, have evolved into a complex legacy of military success and ideological controversy. As Ukraine continues to navigate its path forwards, the story of the Azov Battalion serves as a reminder of the difficulties inherent in balancing national security, democratic values, and international perception. While the battalion's role in Ukraine's defence is undeniable, its controversies highlight the need for ongoing reflection and reform to ensure that the values for which Ukraine fights are reflected in the actions of all those who defend it. Depending on who you ask, ultimately, you will get a different answer in regards to what they think about the Azov Battalion, with some branding them as freedom fighters, whereas others would dub them as a fascist movement who caused destabilization in the Donbass region. Ultimately, there is probably some truth to both statements. There are elements of the Azov Battalion that are indeed fighting bravely for their vision of a future for Ukraine, a Ukraine that controls its own affairs, though there are also elements that are clearly extremist in nature, despite the attempted whitewashing of the organisation by Western media. While there is real validity and evidence to suggest that the Azov Battalion have engaged in war crimes over the years, contrastly, there has also been an attempt to demonise them to levels in which isn't warranted nor correct. Over the years, various graphic videos have been attributed to the Azov Battalion, though the nature and authenticity of these videos are highly questionable, to say the least, with many believing that the clips are propaganda pieces by Russian agencies. Many doubt that the videos are real, though they are still extremely disturbing. Today, we will explore two of these clips in question. But nevertheless, what happens in the actual videos? The first video in question, I'm sure, is one most of you watching will have heard of, that being a video dubbed the Azov Crucifixion. The video was initially released in the first half of 2015, and it soon went viral online due to its disturbing content, though it was soon forgotten after the initial hysteria. However, following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the video soon went viral again, making the rounds online and being used as a tool of political discussion and debate. The origins of the video are murky to say the least, and there are contrasting reports online in regards to its origin, but the story seems to go as follows. On February the 26th of 2015, a Facebook user named Layla Praga published a photo depicting a crucified person being set on fire. According to the poster, the video allegedly shows the execution of a warrior from Donbass by the Ukrainian Azov Battalion in 2014. On the same day, Layla Praga published a second post which represented a screenshot of the same video clip, and the text stated that a Russian soldier was crucified by Ukrainian soldiers. The next day, on the 27th of February, an identical screenshot was posted on the Facebook group Levan Bezadze's supporters, and the post argued that it was Russian soldiers that burned a Ukrainian soldier alive. On the same day, another Facebook user by the name of Read Joke published two videos, both videos showcasing the murder of pro-Russian separatists by the Azov Battalion. At least that is what the uploader claimed. The second video that was posted by the Facebook user Read Joke was the full version of the supposed Azov Crucifixion. One day after the release, the Azov Battalion responded to the video. According to their statement, the video serves to discredit them and is an example of the information warfare against Ukraine. According to them, the uniforms of the soldiers shown in the video are different from that of the fighters of the Azov Battalion, since the shoulder mark is much larger than it should be, while the weapon looks like it's pneumatic. They also point out the fact that the person nailed to the cross does not scream while he is being lifted, and that the video conveniently stops just as the fire is being set. Therefore, it is unknown whether the person really died, or whether they was an actor. A statement from the Azov Battalion on Facebook also said that the individuals in the video were speaking broken Ukrainian. There are also contrasting reports that the video was actually originally published by a Russian hacker group simply known as Cyber Berkut, and they also alleged that the Azov Battalion were responsible. This information was actually broadcast on the TV channel of the Russian Ministry of Defense as well as their online services, though the story can no longer be found, adding credence to the theory that the video is more than likely a hoax, albeit a visually convincing hoax. There are several versions of the video online, though the longest version I found is 4 minutes and 33 seconds in length. The video has been recorded at the dead of night, in the middle of an open field, in the middle of absolute nowhere. Some details of the clip itself are obscured due to the darkness. As you play the video, you are met with the sight of the apparent captive, who can be seen kneeling on the ground. It looks as if he's been gagged by duct tape. He is surrounded by 5 men, who are all wearing military fatigue and carrying an assortment of weaponry. What looks like lit tiki torches can also be seen in the background. One of the soldiers makes a brief statement before the men all surround the victim. They force the captive totally down onto the ground so that he is laying on his back, and he's now laying on a big wooden cross that is already on the ground. The victim is held down by at least 3 men, and you hear another one of the men undo a roll of duct tape. He then proceeds to tape both of the man's arms to the cross. As this happens, the man can be heard groaning through his gag. Eventually, the captive's arms have been completely duct taped to the cross. The person who taped him up then kneels down next to the victim, and you hear a banging noise, the sound of a hammer. The camera view is obscured by the man hammering in the nails, but you can hear the victim groan violently as this happens. The cameraman slowly walks over, and he walks around the victim, and you see that the nail has been driven through his hand into the cross, though his hand doesn't move once, and to me, the hand looks abnormally small, though this may be my imagination. You also see that the victim's other hand has also been nailed into the cross. As the hammer is being used, the victim's groans turn more high-pitched and aggressive. Once his hands have been nailed into the cross, several of the men then carry the cross with the victim attached, and they march over towards a pre-dug hole. They use the hole to erect the cross, with the victim still attached. He grunts and groans as this happens. He's now hoisted in the air, nailed to the cross. The men make sure that the cross is stable. As this happens, the person filming then zooms into one of the victim's hands, and you see it nailed into the cross, but again, no movement from the fingers whatsoever. The hand to me also looks prosthetic, but the footage is in bad quality, so who knows. Once the cross is in place, one of the men kneels down, and it appears as if he is trying to set it ablaze. As this happens, another one of the men in combat fatigue takes one of the torches that is in the ground, and he uses it to hit the victim in the testicles, which draws out a grunt. After a few seconds, the person trying to light the cross backs up, and you see that the bottom of the cross has now caught alight. From the bottom of the cross, flames then travel up the cross, meeting the victim's feet, which causes him to release a violent grunt, but the video ends here. If this clip was indeed real, and if it was intended to warn those who backed the separatist movements in the Donbass, then you would imagine that they wouldn't end the filming at that stage. Similar to videos produced by drug cartels, you would think that they would want to show the most violent aspect of this event. The video itself does contain some inconsistencies. Allegedly, the Ukrainian spoken in the video is broken. The uniforms look like bad replicas, and there are also several cuts in the sound throughout the clip. I will say, however, the grunts from the victim do actually sound pretty real, especially considering the videos I have seen in the past. The behaviour from the victim is also very convincing, to say the least. In regards to him being nailed into the cross, it looks convincing enough, but on close inspection, to me, the hands do look fake. I could be wrong, however. One thing that I should note, as far as I'm concerned, the clip has not been fully confirmed as being fake, though I personally suspect it is. And if it is real, I do find it unlikely that the Azov Battalion were the ones behind it. If it is fake, it's a convincing fake, unlike the second video. The second so-called Azov Battalion execution video details the apparent murders of 2 residents of the Donetsk People's Republic, allegedly with them being aligned to pro-Russian separatists. Unlike the first clip, however, the second video is nowhere near as convincing and is absolutely fake, though still disturbing due to the visuals. The video came out at a similar time to the Azov Crucifixion clip, though it only went viral in May of 2015 after having been uploaded to YouTube of all places. In the video, 2 people are hanged from crude gallows with sacks over their heads in a forest. The video was analysed by various different parties, and according to many experts, the unauthentic nature of the video can be confirmed by the unnatural movement of the bodies of the hanged. Slowing down the video footage shows the man's abdomen moving forwards while the weight of the body is not concentrated on the neck. They also draw attention to the fact that the people involved in the hanging ensure that the bodies do not rotate and their backs do not appear during the video. One of the theories being indicates that those supposedly executed in the video were actors and wore special equipment that is used while climbing cliffs, hence why the backs of the so-called victims are made sure not to be shown in the video. The version of the clip that I found is only very short, at 12 seconds in length, and while disturbing, is blatantly fake. As you play the video, you see the sight of 2 people, a man and a pregnant woman, standing in the forest with sacks on their heads below a makeshift gallows. The narrative behind the clip is that they are husband and wife. In the background there is an old car, and the victims both have ropes tied around their necks. The ropes have been thrown over the gallows pole and are attached to the car on the other side. The car then begins driving forwards, and as this happens, the 2 victims are hoisted in the air, hanging by the necks. They slightly twitch for a second or 2, and their bodies do swing back and forth, but in a way that looks totally fake. Men stand at the bottom of the gallows, holding the victims by the legs so that their bodies do not spin around, possibly revealing the climbing gear that they could be wearing. Dramatic music also begins to play in the video as the pair are hanged. As mentioned, although disturbing, the clip is blatantly fake. There is no tension around the necks, and the way the bodies move in the air looks totally unnatural. It's hard to explain, but it's just clearly not real, whereas the first clip is certainly much more convincing. But anyway, that is the video. I hope you enjoyed it, if you can enjoy this sort of content. Slightly different to my usual videos, obviously we cover, real videos of this kind, and I thought I would get this one out the way because it's something different for me to cover, and an interesting case, or cases, so to speak. If you're new here, if you could smash the like, hit subscribe, that would be much appreciated. If you want to get in touch, follow me on Twitter, well, now known as X. You can drop me a DM if you have any case recommendations or things like that. Also, a link to my Twitch will be in the pinned comment. But anyway, as always, stay safe, and I'll catch you on the next one.